Hey, good morning, everybody. It's me, Brandon Steckler, technical editor of Motor Age magazine. We actually have a new project we are starting today. Myself, and in this case, my really good friend, Chris Martino, owner
Yes.
of ADAS LI in Long Island, New York, longtime friend, brilliant diagnostician, personable instructor. Keep your eye out for Chris, and also fellow Train by Tech member. Buddy, I appreciate you taking the time on a Sunday, no less, to spend with me. Um, Guys, what we're trying to do here is Chris and I, you'll see, this is going to be the first of many interviews. We are going to try and share some data about a car that kicked our butt, in this case, Chris's butt. And what we're hoping to gain from this is as we share this information and you learn to gain some insight on in this case Chris's diagnostic process, how he approaches a problem, how he educates himself about the vehicle and the particular subsystem that's given him grief. You'll see how all of this comes together like puzzle pieces and allows him to make a concrete diagnosis. And to be fair, I really don't know what Chris has in store for us today. I just know it was a problem with a car that didn't start for him. Chris, you want to get rolling with this, buddy? I'm
Yeah,
actually excited about this.
let's get going.
First of all, welcome, man. I appreciate you taking the time. Thank you.
No problem, Brian. I'd rather I wouldn't rather do anything else on a Sunday. This is how
Yeah,
we get.
right.
um, so really what this is it's a 2005 Highlander. Um, so a little bit about myself is I own and operate a diagnostic and ADAS business. We have an in-house facility and we have a mobile element as well. This particular vehicle was one of our mobile calls. We got called out to a shop that we service, and they had a 2005 Toyota Highlander. And the only complaint is the car starts and dies. So I sent my tech out
Arson. Okay.
to this car. My tech is an Asian vehicle specialist. And from the description of what the guy was saying, it was an Asian immobilizer issue. And a little bit about me is I am horrible when it comes to Asian immobilizers. It just they don't make sense to me. I don't know why. You give me an Audi, a Volkswagen, a Land Rover, a BMW, anything immobilizer, timing, whatever, got it. For some reason, the synapses don't fire when it comes to Asian immobilizers. So like, okay,
Fair
easy,
enough.
get my guy out. He's got this. So, if you want, let me share my screen. Is that cool, Brandon?
That'd be great.
All right, so here is basically the screen for that car. It's a 2005 Toyota Highlander. This is the code scan. The only code in the system really was a B2799 engine immobilizer system malfunction.
You know, that lines up with the symptom for sure.
Yeah, exactly. So okay, cool. It starts and dies. Not a big deal. So if you look up the code in the vehicle,
Hmm.
B2799, it's an error in communication between the ECM and the transponder key ECU assembly and in the communication line. Okay, it says the communication ID is different during communication with transponder key ECU. It's a lot of words. Basically says something is wrong here. That's what it says. And what I'm
Hey,
doing, let me see if I can
you know
change.
something? Can you go back just one screen? I want to point something out here. You just reminded me of something. The fact that you took the time to research what this DTC actually means, rather than just take that verbiage for granted. I recall particularly helping a technician with a vehicle, and I don't recall the actual vehicle, year, make, model. But the thing was, he was chasing a perceived immobilizer issue, and it was a crank no start issue.
Mhm.
But if you were to read about the vehicle, that vehicle's immobilizer disables the starter. So with his car, the fact that it even cranked right there, just understanding how the system worked, you realize it had nothing to do with the immobilizer. And well, I'm just getting it. It pays to do your research like you're doing here. Save a lot
Exactly.
of time.
And I've learned this the hard way over years of just trying to see a code, go to a diagram and just move on. Um, I've learned the hard way that code setting criteria, why the code is getting there, that helps a lot in pointing in the right
Excuse me.
direction. And in this code and the code setting criteria, it's clearly saying the car does not like something in this system. You get your ECM over here, transponder key ECU assembly over here, all right, and you have two lines that go in between it. And
Okay.
all that goes on here, right, from reading about this is your ECM wants to start the car. It wants to tell the car to start, but you need to know that you have a good valid key in the car. That's this guy's only job, to tell the ECM that the key is a valid key.
No, it just reminds me of the old-fashioned telephones, the one you got one to your ear and a microphone. You talk in one and you listen in the other. That's kind of what it is here.
Exactly what's going on. And so all it's saying is there's an issue here. Okay, cool. So what do we do?
So the ECM asks the transponder, is this key valid? And then the transponder will respond, it's a good key or it's not a good key, right?
Exactly. So doing a
Okay.
little bit more research. Okay, fine. So I have my ECM, I have my transponder key ECU. We obviously need to check them because it sees a problem in the line, correct? So where
Yes.
do they live? That's the next thing you want to look at, right? So if you go in service information, in this case, I'm using all data because it's what I have on the road. You can see that I have my transponder key amplifier. That's the little ring around the key, right? You
Mhm.
have transponder key ECU, all right, which tells the ECM, which is right here, that it's okay to start the car. That's the entire immobilizer system in the car, right?
Yeah.
And that's literally how it works. You stick the key in the ignition, right? And the act of sticking the key in the ignition excites this little coil over here, which sends
Mhm.
us to the transponder key ECU. When the keys, when you have a crank request happening from the ECM, these guys talk and say, okay, start the car. But now, funny thing is, Brandon, where are these ECUs located?
You know, as soon as I saw that it's located right there beneath the windshield, I'm thinking, I wonder if something happened. I wonder if some water, a windshield leaked, or we got a pillar leaking water, rainwater.
So you're speaking from a guy that works on cars in the Northeast.
Yeah,
Honestly, seems to
for
be a
sure.
problem for you, right? So, my guy, what he did is he dropped the glove box down. He dropped the glove box down. You can get out. You can see right up everything, and you can see green growing out of the
Ah,
transponder ECU.
home run.
Exactly. Boom, run. He called me. He's like, the transponder key ECU is wet. Everything talks. I'm calling it. I said, let me see a picture. So he sends me a picture. This is what we got. I'm like, sweet, dude. He sends me another picture. This is
Something tells me this
clearly
isn't
the
going to
problem.
end here.
Yeah, this is clearly the problem, right, Brandon?
I
Clearly,
see it.
that's why we're having this conversation, because my guy found water in a transponder ECU and it fixed the car, right?
Yeah.
So, so what do you do here? So he called the transponder ECU. Luckily,
Hmm.
that shop that the car was at had a Toyota dealer that was down the street. So we told the shop, do me a favor, give me a transponder ECU. It's clearly wet. We put it in. 2 days later, we get a call, new parts in. My guy goes and installs the unit
Okay.
and goes to learn the key. The procedure for doing all this, again, is in service information, right? And all you need to do is when you put a new transponder ECU in, you have to handshake the modules, right?
Okay.
So to do the handshake for the modules, you have to jump terminals TC and CG of the data link connectors, 2 pins of the terminal, 4 and 10. I forget which ones it is exactly. Either way, use a paper clip.
To
Go on.
clarify what you're saying, handshake, it's almost like a configuration thing. You let the vehicle see this new component, right?
Exactly.
Recognizing the new components installed.
There's all kinds of black magic happens on the background. The dash is flashing. It goes insane. And when you're done, everything's supposed to be handshake. At that point, you can learn the keys. Car should start. According to it, that's how it should work. Again, immobilizers and me don't get along. So I said, again, I feel like I'm dodging a bullet. I don't have to deal with this. My guy's got this. So he followed the procedure down. Did the handshake for a half hour, learned the keys, and he said the key didn't learn. So
Okay.
he tried to learn the other one. It just didn't make it to step 2. But he kept on saying that the keys were already. He told me, from what I remember, it knows that it was already a matched key. So he said, just
Okay.
do me a favor. Can you go to the Toyota dealer? Let's get a new master key. So which isn't a big deal. They're cheap and they're down at the dealer. Guy goes 15 minutes later, comes back with a master key, learns, start, stall, die, P2799, same exact code, right? At this point, I'm like, all right. And so my guy goes and says, I don't know what's wrong. So this is when I get involved. I schedule timeout. I go to the next day, realizing, crap. Now I'm actually gonna have to deal with this car. So I go there the next day and I kind of want to start over from scratch. Did my guy miss anything? Did anything happen? All right.
Mm-hmm.
So I start out by, again, looking at the code setting criteria, looking at the registration procedure. And then I want to see a diagram of the system. Now I wanted to show this diagram. It's a lot of stuff in here, right?
Okay.
You have here your transponder key amplifier, which is the ring around the key. You have your fuses, your data link connector, right? You have, your switches. None of this matters. All that matters is this section right here. This is the only thing the car has the problem with. So I blew it up so you can see it a lot easier.
Oh, much better.
Yeah. And again,
And there's your EFI and EFIO.
exactly.
I see
So
it.
EFIO, EFII, IMI, IMO, it's all the same stuff. It's just the communication lines talking back and forth between the transponder key computer and the engine control module. And the only code in the car is something is not happy right here. Okay.
Yeah,
So what do we
I'm
do
with
then?
you.
Yeah.
Wait.
So I know in Toyota service information, they have what's called terminals of ECU. And what that does is it actually has a lot of these pins in all the computers. It'll tell you what signals are supposed to be on the line, which is really
Oh, like a known good. Hey, there you go.
exactly.
Right there.
So on these two lines, the IMO and IMI, which are these two here, also known as EFIO or EFII, depending on where the car is coming from. It doesn't matter. It's two different names for the same thing. It has a known good waveform. I mean, this is a very clear waveform. It makes total sense. You can totally see what it says. Basically, it says, I want to see stuff happen here, and it's going to kind of look like this. And I want to see stuff happen here. It's going to kind of look like this.
Any way you can change your cursor so it pops for us? It's very
Let me see if I can do that. Here, hold on. Pointer
thanks.
options, laser pointer. Is that any better?
Oh, much better. Can
Okay.
you still work with that?
I think I can make that work.
Perfect. Thank you.
So, all it's looking for that I could tell is on my IMI line, it wants to look like this. And my IMO, it wants to look like this. So I hook up my scope and I hook up to the things and I see this. See my IMI and IMO lines.
It looks pretty healthy to me.
I have nice clean square waves. It's good. I don't see like if you would expect to see a voltage drop or like a high resistance in a line, you'd expect to see some kind of weird shapes. It would look kind of like rounder. Something
I would think so.
Yeah, I have nice, clear, sharp things, and I'm
put it this way: nothing scaring me on this.
Exactly.
On this capture, I'm not getting nervous.
Exactly. I look at this. I'm like, okay, communication is clearly happening. I mean, the shapes are kind of like this. I mean, this is all Toyota gives you. So, okay. So again, my codes are that something is wrong here, or here, or here. Because my waveforms look good, right? Nice and sharp. I'm going to say I don't have any resistance in the lines, right? I can talk to this guy. I can talk to this guy. So I'm going to assume my powers and grounds are good. Again, I load checked them anyway, but like, so I just replaced this. It was full of water. If you look, this guy the ECM lives right under the water of the windshield. So I'm like, okay, since there's only two parts in the system, let's replace the other parts right under the water. Let's get a computer for it. So the guy goes, "Can I get you a used computer?" I was like, "Sure, let's give me a used computer." Fine.
Yeah, I want to point something out.
Yeah.
Some people would go, "Oh, now he's throwing parts at it," but you're not. You've proven as far as you can prove, and everything is there. The signal's there. The wires have integrity. It's a logical. I'll call it a logical estimated guess, educated guess.
And the unfortunate reality of this business is you can test only so much.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, at some point there's got to be some deductive reasoning. All right, you got to think about things.
Agreed.
Yeah, and I'm not jumping to replace all the parts in the car. Right?
No,
but
your decisions were justified.
Exactly. I had a wet component. All right, and I had a code for that wet component. Okay, looks to be good. So I was only assuming the ECM must be wet too. So I have my guy, I have the shop owner get me a computer. He gets me a used computer, which is perfectly fine for this car. Nothing's crazy. Put it in, run through the procedure again, because remember, you have to handshake these cars, right?
Mhm.
Handshake the cars, learn the keys, put together. At this point, again, I'm going to keep on reiterating that I am not comfortable with Asian immobilizers, and especially since this is technically a comeback, I want to make sure I get it right. So
Sure.
I call my buddy Tommy, um, and
Tommy Oliva out in
sure,
Chicago.
I love Tommy.
Tommy's a great guy.
He's
Smart too. Really
you
sharp
know
guy.
what, we help each other out. He's funny, but Tommy has the biggest heart, and he'll always make sure to do the right thing. And I told him, I was like, listen, Tommy, I want to make sure I do this right. I said Asian immobilizers and me don't get along. He's like, they're easy. I'm like, for you, they're easy. For me, it's I can't get it. So like I have him walk me through, and he hangs out with me. I have him walk me through the whole process, step by step by step, to the point where like, at what point, Tommy, do I turn the key on now, later? Do I disconnect the wires now? He walks me through the handshake
Stuff's
process.
important.
Yeah, because what I find with Asian vehicles, when they write information and service information, they mean it. They write things in a certain order, and they mean it has to be in that order. And I like to fly through work. I like to go really fast, and sometimes I might skip something. So I slow down and have Tommy help go through it step by step, just in case I'm missing something, because it doesn't make any sense. And so we go, and he has me go through the handshake procedure, step by step, and then trying to start the car. Doesn't start. Same thing. Start, stall, 2799 code. Okay, he goes through that with me 3 times. That's how good of a guy this guy is. He took time out of his day. He took an hour and a half out of his day, where he's got to make money.
That
Help me
tracks.
walk through this. And at this point, he's like, dude, I don't know. It sounds like something's not right here. So I speak to the customer, and I tell the customer, listen, I want to fix your car, but I need to have it towed to me, because when I'm at the shop and doing this handshake, an hour and a half out of my day, that's I'm staring at the computer, I'm just flashing. Like, have it towed to me and let me work on this thing. So next day, the car shows up, and I'm working on it, and I can't get this thing to go through. And it seems to be, again, that something between the immobilizer and the engine computer, just they're not jiving. So I do some digging on some forums. I ask some people around, and I've been told that like sometimes these cars, this generation of Toyotas, if you have an immobilizer problem, it's got to be learned on the bench. Okay, so we find a local key guy. All right, to come to the shop. I'm on the road because I do some calls on the road, and I take the ECM out. I take the key. I give him the keys and the immobilizer unit, and I put it on the thing. And the key guy spends 3 hours matching this up, and he can't get it to work. He tells me something's wrong, then leaves. Because he couldn't do anything. So again, I call Tommy again, because Tommy is the king of the mobilizers, king of used modules, EEPROM. He's my go-to for all that stuff. So I told him what I'm dealing with. And he said, dude, you know what? Just send me everything. So I sent him in a box all the keys to the car, the engine control module, and the immobilizer module. Basically everything it takes to start this car. So now I have a brick in my car, and I have a delicate package that I insured the hell out of to get to Chicago so he can learn it on the bench. So Tommy is working on it. He called me a couple days later. He goes, hey, man, something's up with this ECM. I can't pull the immobilizer data out of it. I'm like, okay. So apparently the used ECU the guy got me must have been corrupt somehow.
What are the odds? Jeez.
Whatever it is, man. Give me a new one. Whatever it takes. So it's like, I can get you one. I was like, whatever, man. Just get it going. So he gets me another used ECU. He goes to the immobilizer, and he marries everything on the bench. He goes, everything's married. Okay. Sends it back to me. He goes, this car should start right up. You just have to do the handshake, and the car should start right up. A couple days later, I get everything. I plug everything back in, do the handshake, start, stall, B27 or P2799.
Oh no.
So I called Tommy again. I'm like, dude, I said, like, I'm not, I just like, I'm like, I know I'm missing something. Is there anything else I could be missing? So he walks me through. I go by the TechStream VSP credentials. Try to
That's
exactly.
the factory Toyota scan tool for this
Yes, I
vehicle, right?
apologize. TechStream is the factory. I go through the factory Toyota thing. I buy the LSID package to
Mm-hmm.
learn the keys to do everything right. Fill out the D1.
Locksmith ID, right?
Exactly. I fill out the D1 form, do the LSID thing, learn the keys all the correct way. I was like, all right, let me get PJ a call, PJ Walter. PJ, really good master Toyota tech, like really good dude. He just started
No,
going on his own.
PJ well. Great
PJ's
guy.
you got two Pennsylvania boys.
Yeah, I love this networking. It's funny. No matter what part of the country, all these names you're mentioning, we're
Mhm.
all friends. That's the benefit of networking.
And
You
it's
get
the benefit of
like-minded
networking
people.
and the internet and just going to training events and meeting all these people.
Speaking of which, Vision coming up a couple of
This is
weeks.
coming up. So I call up PJ. I go, PJ, what am I doing wrong? So when I call people for help, because I do that, because again, I'm not the smartest tool in the shed. That's probably the wrong saying. But either way, um, I don't ask for somebody to do this for me. I asked him, PJ, can you please tell me how the system works? Explain to me like you would a 5-year-old how the system works. He goes, yeah, it's pretty simple. He goes, you seek a key in the ignition, right? Your exciter ring, which I can go back to that here. Let's go back to the exciter ring.
I'd like to explain to people that the exciter ring kind of tickles the key and makes it laugh.
Well, that's exactly what it does, basically, if you think about it. So the act of physically sticking the key in the ignition sends a signal to the transponder key ECU assembly, right? He's explaining this to me. You put the key in the ignition, the transponder key amplifier here, right? That sends a signal of the key. That's all it does. There's no smarts there. It sends the actual like the ID of the key to the transponder key ECU assembly. The transponder ECU assembly, once the ECM detects that the car is going to want to start, asks for the key and makes sure that it's okay.
Yeah, thumbs up or thumbs down.
Exactly. And again, it is all done on these two lines.
I'm with you.
All right.
That is pretty simple.
It's a very simple system. When it works fine, it works fine. It's that simple. I'm like, okay, so I'm not missing anything. I was like, do you have like I have the factory waveform. I was like, do you have a known good? Maybe you have something that's different than mine. So he shows me, like, this is the one I took. He sends me this. All right.
Well, wait a minute.
Well, hold on just 1 second.
Yeah.
Actually, this is from what I remember, this is what when you're at the dealership and you have a problem and you need to call up the tech line, they want this along with your request file.
So we'll call this a known good waveform, right?
This is the known good waveform.
Okay.
And I heard you say something and I interrupted you. What were you about to say?
I think thinking back to the first capture you showed me from your vehicle,
This guy here.
I thought it looked pretty healthy, that one. But I'm
Yeah.
seeing some differences here, mainly the height, that what we call the amplitude of the waveform.
Exactly. And I caught that too. Right. So, and again, all I had to go on was this.
Yeah. And you know what? What does that 10 volts mean? Is that the size of the screen or is that 10 volts per division?
I don't know. I don't know.
It's
So
not
I'm trying
really
to get how do you get 10 volts here? Because usually this cross is 0, correct? So
yeah, because hey, if you look over to the right next to tool setting, it says 10 volts per division. So that would make that a 30-volt signal the way that's written.
exactly. So it makes
no
0
sense.
sense. So I
Yeah.
don't know. You got 10 volts. Is that 1 volt? Is it 3 volts? Is it 30
Yeah.
volts? I don't know what that means. All I know is it looks like this.
Yeah, I agree. You kind of look at it and say, this isn't my problem. Right? Immediately
Exactly.
almost validate it, and it might not actually be valid.
Exactly. But again, you picked up on the same thing that I picked up. Wait a second. Both your signals and your known good ones are at 12 volts, right? we're living here, well, not 12 volts, operating voltage. This is clearly taking while the car's
Can,
running, right?
can we go back to what yours was? Let's take a look at that amplitude.
So I have
So, oh, you got
11,
your cursor set. Yeah.
I have 11 volts over here, 5 volts over here.
Well, that certainly doesn't match.
Yeah, but again, I'm thinking deductive reasoning, right? So
Sure.
11 volts, basically 12 volts, right? I have 12 volts, which is operating voltage, and I have 5 volts, which is another known good voltage in a car. So I'm like, okay, this makes sense ish. There are two known.
Yeah.
It's not like I have 4 volts and then 7 volts, right? I have 12 volts is a known voltage you have in the car. 5 volts is another known voltage I have in the car.
Right. Nothing surprising.
Exactly. Nothing standing out is dumb. But again, I called this out to PJ and I said, well, I got 12 volts and 12 volts. I was like, do me a favor. It's like, you have factory information, right? He goes, yeah. I was like, and do you have that kind of hidden stuff they don't tell everybody else about, like that other inside Toyota stuff, the secrets? He goes, hold on a second. So he's digging through everything that he got. He goes up and down a couple of years, and all he has is this same waveform. That's all Toyota gives you.
Okay.
Is this. So I'm like, okay. What do I do? So at this point, we're trying to figure out like what is wrong here, and clearly, I mean, it almost seems like I have a wrong component in the car, but if I look at everything I have, the immobilizer ECU, same part number, bought from the dealer by VIN. All right, my engine control modules, again, they're the same part number. You can tell they're different ones because look, the blue line's in a different spot.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, I was just going to say that's not the same computer. It's the same. It's two different components, but they have the same part number.
Same exact part number. So he goes, let me do a favor. He goes, he actually has a friend who happens to have a 2005 Highlander with a V6.
Okay.
He goes, let me call this guy. So he actually had a friend in his dealership network that had a scope, liked him, and was willing to use it, which is, I can't believe that was all there. So I get a call back like the next day. I was like something like 11 o'clock at night. It was crazy. It was a crazy hour, right? He goes, it's 5 volts. I go, what do you mean? He goes, both signals on his Toyota Highlander are 5 volt signals.
Both of them are 5.
Both of them are 5 volt signals. I go, what?
And yours was like 11 and 5, right?
One was 12, one was 12,
Yeah.
one was 7. So my the transponder ECU was sending out a different voltage that the engine control module was not looking for.
So you've got a known good vehicle that actually starts and runs, same year, make, model, and that one has a different signal waveform than the one you have in your work bay that doesn't start.
And in service information.
Oh my God.
So we're talking about this. I'm like, okay, so clearly, this must be a one-off that nobody's written about. Okay, so what can I do here?
Why do we always seem to find these cars? You ever notice that?
Yeah.
Every one of us has one of these stories.
Well, and it's funny, this shop, like all of my hardest cars have come from this shop, and I don't know what it is about this shop. But so I'm like, okay, so I clearly have a module that is wrong, but it's not wrong, but it's right because everything's the same part number. There's not a different part number in this car, but it's clearly wrong. So I was like, PJ, okay, cool. So let's go back and talk about the system again. All right. So the entire system, the entire mobilizer system are these 3 components.
The transponder, the ECM, and the transponder ECU.
Exactly, right? So I'm like, okay, I could put a used ECU in this car, right? He goes, yes. Okay, cool. I could put a used transponder in this car. Technically, yes. Okay. And the amplifier, all it is it's just you stick the key in and it sends a signal. There's no smarts there. So yes, so technically, if I get a transponder ECU assembly and an ECM out of a running car, those things match. We don't care what the transponder amplifier says. As long as those work, we're okay. In theory, yes. Just keep in mind, I live in the Northeast. where cars
Sure.
rot.
Mm-hmm.
I need to find a running 2005-ish Highlander with the same motor that runs in a junkyard, that runs still in a junkyard, that they're willing to get rid of those two parts.
Yeah.
Luckily, we found one in Queens. We found one in Ozone Park. We ran down there, took him out of the car, brought him back to the shop. All right. I put them into the car, did the handshake,
Mm-hmm.
everything learned, everything was good. I was like, here goes nothing. Start the car, starts up and runs.
No
Starts up and
kidding.
runs, and no codes in the car.
How about that? Holy heck.
So so the customer's happy to get the car back because we had a conversation here for about what 20, 30 minutes here. I had this car for about a month. And the customer was out of the car for a month, and they were starting to freak out. They were upset, but like again, I'm doing the best I can here.
Sure. The thing is, you know what? All the factory service information and tooling in the world would not have fixed this car. It was your diligence and your research and attention to detail that got this car fixed.
Exactly. I don't know, I don't know how to get to this answer faster. The only way to get
That's
to this
insane.
answer faster is have all the people I outsource right next to me.
Mm-hmm.
Again, where is any of this written down? And where did I go wrong? My guy did not make the wrong call. He found a corroded module. And the ECM I got apparently had corrupted mobilizer data in it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
where did we go wrong? And if we would have bought the parts from the dealer, they would have been right because it's the same part number.
Uh-huh.
So like, I don't understand how we like. I get how we got there, but like it's just crazy how you get to these things.
It really
But
is.
but again, you have the pressure of a customer because again, I'm doing work for a shop, so you got the pressure of the shop, and then the customers without their car, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're the customers without their car, um, calling them, pressuring me, and I'm like, I'm trying the best I can to fix this car. And again, you're right. It's just you got to stick with it. You got to stick with your guns.
I gotta throw a couple of things in here that I think are important to bring up.
Mhm.
Many technicians are still, believe it or not, in this day and age, on the fence about lab scope diagnostics. Um, I hear all the time, even still, that I've been fixing cars for years and I don't need that stinking lab scope. And you know what? I gotta say, do you need a scope to fix a car? No, but we got to be honest with ourselves. If we aren't testing and we aren't seeing the data and making decisions based off the data, are we guessing? Even if we're right 99% of the time, are we guessing? We are. And I can say without any doubts that everything you did, I agree, is justified. There was no guesswork involved. You've taken every analysis as far as you could to come up with a diagnosis.
Mhm.
Now, retracing our steps, a wet EC, excuse me, not a ECU, transponder
Yeah,
ECU. And then an ECU that had corrupt data.
yeah,
And then you finally get the thing working, and there really technically wasn't anything wrong. It just didn't jive with the transponder. So in other words, any one of these components in another vehicle may have started,
correct,
but
correct.
the combination of the two together didn't line up. It was like from two different
It was a
years.
perfect storm of
Yes, the perfect storm. That's a good
acceptance.
way to put it. And here's the thing, you're not going to find that documented in any factory source. Matter of
No,
fact, what was documented in the factory information is wrong.
exactly. Because again,
So,
we went up multiple years, and I'm almost positive I had them check different vehicles with the same powertrain combination,
mm-hmm,
just to be sure. And all Toyota gives you is that one waveform.
yeah,
That doesn't make any sense.
that's wow, that's tough. This was a tough diagnosis.
Yeah, I
And
mean, I think about it now.
I do have to say, if you didn't have the scope, how confident would you be in any of the decisions you made after you quote unquote misdiagnosed it when it came back? I got to tell you something because I'll never forget this one vehicle. I can't remember the year or the model, but it was a GM. and the car was in for a no communication issue with a powertrain control module.
Mhm.
Did my bag of tricks, diagnosed it as a bad powertrain control module. It was faulty. There was something wrong with the CAN transceiver internal,
Mhm.
and it needed to be replaced. I don't have the capabilities to do ECU repairs. I'm not skilled in that arena.
Mhm.
So we got a reconditioned ECU from one of those places,
Mhm.
and we plugged it in, and same thing. I came up, same symptom, and I came up with the same exact diagnosis. And then I had my boss, who is very, very talented diagnostician. I said, look, I'm going to step away from this one because I'm missing something. I want you to diagnose it. I'll go work on something else. He came up with yet another diagnosis for a bad PCM.
Mhm.
We finally got a third PCM for it, but this one we got new from the dealer, and it fixed the car. But what I'm saying, I brought all that up to tell you that following the data, there was never any doubt in our mind. We had to make sure we weren't missing anything, but every time we called a bad PCM, it was justified. There was no doubt in our mind.
Exactly.
So you got to have that data there to analyze, and being able to implement a lab scope allows us to do a couple of things. One, verify the wiring's integral, right? If the signal is getting from here to there, obviously there's, the harness isn't cut in half or shorted to ground or shorted to a voltage source. And being able to see that live on the scope screen, well, as close to live as possible, you're seeing how these systems, in this case, work together and shake hands.
Mhm.
So you're learning as you go. I can't tell you how much I've learned about systems and how they work just by looking at the data. You're teaching yourself.
Well, it's exactly what it is. I got a first class look on how Toyota immobilizers work in 2005. Information will I ever need in the future? I don't know, but I know how
Yeah,
this one works now.
that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, I got to say, Chris, this was a good time. I really appreciate you taking the time, especially on a Sunday. And you know something? You set the bar nice and high here, man. These upcoming interviews I'm going to be conducting over the next year. This is going to be one they're going to have to try and step over. You know what I mean? This is really good. I'm glad you got that car fixed, man.
I'm
Great
glad
work.
I lost sleep over this one. This one's tough. That's another thing. Like, yeah, when I get a car that doesn't work, I can't sleep until it's right. And when this car left fixed, it was a good feeling.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Good stuff, buddy. Well, my
Thank you.
friend, I appreciate you taking the time. I really do. I hope to get you back on here again with some more war stories in the future.
I'm sure there will be.
Guys, thanks for watching. Again, Chris Martino, ADAS Ally in Long Island, New York. I'm Brandon Steckler, Technical Editor of Motor Age Magazine. Thanks for joining us in our first of many interviews, and we'll see you next time.